This video is sponsored by DJ The Lazy Gamer and Crimson Manifesto. Hey all, very quick before we begin, another reminder to please subscribe. As you can see, a startling amount of you consistently watch my videos without doing so, and it's a very easy way to help out the channel. With that out of the way though, on to the show. Rob Lucci versus Who's Who, Clash of the Top Cats. What if CP9 became Pirates Part 2? The fight between the two former superstar feline assassins of CP9 begins anew, suddenly growing much faster and fiercer as Who's Who zips about the battlefield with an all-fours moonwalk that is quick enough to challenge Lucci's razor in a contest of speed. And if not for his advanced technique's better mobility, he quickly have found himself pinned underneath the larger beast's claws and fangs. But now seeing an opening, he whips his leg out, summoning a high-pressure shockwave that appears like a glowing bird, aimed dead center for the saber-tooth. But instead of avoiding it, Who's Who simply fortifies his jaws with armament hockey, tearing the wind apart with ease, and snapping his fangs together to retaliate by attempting to hollow Lucci out with his fang pistol. However, this has the side effect of obscuring the beast pirate's view for a single precious moment, in which Lucci barely dodged the counterattack and senses the power difference between them once again, causing him to see value in a shift to his strategy. So when the other zone user regains a visual of him, it is the sight of Lucci's bulky frame slimming down with the use of life return. In the next moment, Lucci reclaims the advantage of speed, and creates a cage of pain so to speak, as he announces Spot's razor, and races around Who's Who with a supersonic barrage of finger pistols, causing his blur black and yellow to be accentuated with the ancient animal's blood splatter, even as he tries to strengthen his defense with a hockey-enhanced iron body. Doflamingo and Queen both roar with laughter at their allies' expense, the warlord asserting that annoying Straw Hat brat must be some pirate to have taken down Lucci, while Queen jeers at the weak armament hockey the #1 man the Toby Ropo is sporting, causing Who's Who to snarl and roar at the bastards to shut up, as he plants a paw hard and spins his body so his fangs, claws, and tail create Tempest Kick blade that form a tornado, a feat Queen backhandedly praises as somewhat similar to Kaido's Twister attack, but imitation or not, the result is still genuine, as caught off guard, Lucci is sent airborne from the force of the wind blades tearing into his unprepared flesh. Meanwhile, as he eyes Lucci's stoic crew, particularly Caulifla, Dofi goads them, asking why they aren't moving to help their captain. But the former assassins only remain silent and vigilant, though in their hearts they are ferociously rooting for their friend. As Lucci falls, his pride suddenly keeps him steady enough to right himself in the air and fire off another Tempest Kick to contest against his former comrade's Vortex, making an ear-splitting sound ring out and obscure the saber-toothed man in a dust cloud. However, a swipe from massive claws clears it, as Who's Who decides this is worth his hybrid form finally, and towers above the already fatiguing Lucci. The leopard man can't help but ruefully smirk, as he can already tell his first challenge since Innie's lobby is leagues beyond Straw Hat Luffy at the moment, and he seemingly pushed them to go all out already without the further training he desired. This causes him to muse that if he survives this, he'll have to get an updated Doriki reading from Fukuro. Just then, as Who's Who drops back onto all fours and uses Iron Body, Lucci's eyes adjust to something, the other assassin's fangs, head, and claws taking on a black metallic sheen. But alas, before he can celebrate his own hockey seemingly awakening mid-battle, Who's Who becomes a blur by throwing himself forward on powerful arms for a technique he dubs the Fang Flash. All of the Cipher Pirates are caught off guard by this attack that seems better suited for Admiral Aokiji than a simple zone user. But in the next moment, Lucci is bulldozed so fast that his body is reduced to nothingness, finally drawing a reaction of shock and denial from his crew, whilst Queen teases Who's Who for going so far and Doflamingo scoffs at his entertainment being ruined so quickly. As Who's Who skids to a stop, he roars at Queen to shut his mouth, as this was his order, while indignantly, Jabra barks that the overgrown kitten will pay for robbing him of a chance to best his rival, a sentiment Kaku backs as he unsheathes his swords. But shockingly, it is the voice of Lucci himself that rebukes his crewmates, reminding them that one of the only ways to truly piss him off other than being weak is taking his prey. Surprised, Who's Who looks behind him only to find nothing. But Queen's hysterical laughter reminds him that he doesn't have to rely on his physical sight as he activates his observation hockey to find his opponent. But it's far too late, as Lucci once again in human form pops out of the other Catman's mane and claps his hands together to form a hammer as he uses Iron Body and brings it down atop Who's Who's skull with enough force to plant his still hardened fangs into the stone floor, temporarily pinning him down as he hops off of him. Confused, Jopper and the crew demand to know what happens, as a panting Lucci transforms back to a leopard man and simply responds that he doesn't really know himself, while retaking the stance for a Rokuogon and summoning all his strength and will to combine with the pressure wave. Meanwhile, Dofi explains, stating he saw it. Just before Who's Who made contact, Lucci reacted and returned to human form to hide. And considering their vast power and speed difference, this meant only one thing. For a single moment there, Lucci saw into the future with observation hockey further than Who's Who could, a prospect which intrigues Queen and causes Lucci to smirk, as his arms begin to ache from holding the attack back for a longer time than he's ever attempted to. He then thanks his former contemporary, stating his entire reason for coming to the New World and seeking him out was for the purpose of unlocking such power, and thus, he'll simply teach the rest of his crew after he himself has learned to master it. As the larger cat finally gets his head free, it is only to come eye level with Lucci's fist as his attack is released. this one hurting much worse, as Who's Who can tell a bit of hockey had seeped into the technique. A testament to how quickly Rob Lucci could grow when faced with superior opponents, due to that overshadowing natural talent for killing their teacher used to praise so highly. It pisses Who's Who off, and in the midst of being battered with a shockwave, he suddenly snakes his tail out to wrap around Lucci's arms, squeezing like a vice while redirecting them so Lucci clips himself with the attack, and more importantly leaves Who's Who with an opening that he takes full advantage of. As he hardens his head with hockey and suddenly pushes off the ground with a moonwalk that causes him to bash it ruthlessly into Lucci's chin, resulting in the leopard man losing strength in his legs as his brain is jostled. The Toby Ropo then lands, panting hard and resorting to using life return for the first time in the fight to shake off some of the damage and leveling a claw at Lucci's head to finish the job. However, Queen orders him to hold it there, causing the cat zone to demand to know why, arguing that Lucci would be useless to Kaido. But before he gets an answer, he suddenly slings the beaten Lucci over his shoulder and jumps over to Queen, as a rain of Tempest kicks cuts a hole in the floor where he stood moments before, originating from the man's crew who deems it now suitable to cut in. Then with perfect synchronicity and precision, the former assassins suddenly break into two groups led by Jabra and Kaku in an aerial pincer to reclaim their captain. While smartly, Bluno moves to open an air door behind Who's Who to stealthily snatch Lucci back, but Jabra warns him against it, reminding that not only would this anger the still barely conscious Catman, but this would also open them up to a surprise attack from even heavier hitters like Doflamingo or worse, Queen himself. Similarly, Dofi raises a hand to stop this, but Queen states it's unbecoming of a captain to step in before their officers, causing the Joker to laugh and admit that it's true, snapping his fingers and ordering the combat-oriented members of the Don Quixote family forward to meet this assault. Pika and Diamante lead the counter charges on either side, clashing with Jabra and Kaku in midair as the Cipher Pirates quickly resort to transforming to their hybrid states to go all out, as these opponents are far more dangerous than Straw Hats were, allowing Jabra to meet a silent slash of Pika's massive sword, using his Tekai Kenpo to snap it in two before retaliating with his 10-finger pistol, causing Pika to crowd in pain in his high voice, and Jabra to just barely stifle his laughter. Meanwhile, Kaku uses his pasta machine technique to unleash a 4-pointed hoof pistol for the tall man's vitals, only for them to be blocked as Diamante's cape returns to a block of steel to shield the flagman, leaving only 4 smoking points of contact as Kaku moonwalks back to regain his distance, leveling his swords and praising the Don Quixote officer's reaction time, which Diamante denies, until Kaku stops, at which point he fervently accepts the compliment and admonishes having to kill such a kind fighter. Meanwhile, as the two zones are distracted with such tough opponents, the third high officer present, Trouble, seeks to put an end to the conflict by blasting the powerful Devil Fruit users with his mucus. However, Caulifla seems to anticipate this and launches a barrage of soap bubbles which wash away the snotty attack and quickly overwhelms Trouble as an almost natural counter to his Devil Fruit, quickly locking his frail skinny body in a gross mass of his own mucus, left shiny and slick from Caulifla's soap as Sanji and Nami once were. However, the assassin's own instincts to finish her kill off leave her open to a dual attack from Dellinger and Lao Ji, as the other two combat-oriented lower officers of Diamante's army along with Gladius, Baby 5, and Buffalo converge on the rest of the crew, quickly using their greater numbers, devil fruits, and experience with hockey to slowly overwhelm them. And yet, the former government-sanctioned killers continue to fight valiantly, Bluno using his door abilities to turn Gladius' explosions back on him, while Kumadori is able to use his hair to bind Buffalo's spinning, and Fukuro pesters the beautiful Baby 5 with his persistence and durability, hitting on her all the while. But this sadly just cannot last, as the disadvantages grow each moment, as Pika even grows angry enough to full on ignore Dofi's orders to be careful with his throne room, as he manifests a medium-sized stone body and claps his hands around Jabra to crush him. At the same time, Diamante wraps his sword around Kaku's massive neck, rendering the crew's monster trio captured, and leaving the remaining 3 members to soon face the same fate. Finally getting its bearings back as his crew fights for him, Lucci growls and uses the last of his strength to plunge a finger pistol into Who's Who's back, creating an opening for him to wriggle away to help his crew, sending off Tempest kicks and flying finger pistols to break the holds and formations bearing down on them, thus creating similar openings and nearly freeing them all, if not for Queen's arm suddenly extending mechanically and latching around his throat, slowly squeezing until the assassin passes out, causing Queen to chuckle and throw his limp body back to Who's Who, with an order to make sure he holds on to him this time, while the saber-toothed man snarls, digging his claws in to roughly hold Lucci by the scruff. Now that things are winding down, Doflamingo summons a nest of strings which wrap around each of the 6 crewmates' necks as more permanent restraints, while he turns to Queen to ask if he has any interest in these losers as well, to which Queen simply waves the question off out of disinterest, citing that Kaido only wants the strong, before suddenly yawning and demanding a snack so he can take a nap. Dofi cackles that in that case he'll have Sugar turn them into toys, since he's curious to see how useful former government super assassins would be as his mindless slaves. As the Cipher Pirates slowly join Lucci in unconsciousness, one by one, Bluno peers up at the ceiling, wondering exactly where they went wrong. However, he sees a flash of white, and he recognizes it to be Hattori. Giving him an idea for a Hail Mary, he suddenly opens a door in front of the well-trained bird, so that it may covertly land behind his head where he tells it to listen closely, as he has a message he needs to give to Lucci. Just barely choking it out in time, before hearing the noise, Dofi pulls the strings harder, and the bull-headed man's throat tighter. Gagging, Bluno defiantly roars for Hattori to go now, as he opens another door, this one directly under the feet of both Who's Who and the unconscious Lucci. And due to his fatigue from brawling with Lucci, the conscious Catman is unable to react in time, and so goes plummeting to wherever Bluno intended, just before he too falls unconscious, and Hattori just barely flies through the hole before it closes, while the wide-eyed queen wonders how much booze it will take for Kaido to not care about such a flub on his part. Meanwhile, Who's Who quickly becomes nauseous as the strange trio fall through door space, suddenly being spouted out the edge of Dressrosa, causing them all to fall off the island entirely, and thus towards the water. Self-preservatory instincts kicking in, Who's Who drops Lucci, attempting to moonwalk back over to solid ground, but immediately being impeded as an enraged Hattori begins to attack his face. And worse, his fatigue is not yet faded, so he once again joins Lucci in his descent. But whether by an act of calculation by Bluno or a miracle altogether, the two land hard on the deck of a passing ship, not comfortable by any means, but still alive. Too tired to maintain his beast form, Who's Who reverts to his human form out of instinct, and while rubbing his head, looks up only to suddenly feel a blinding hot rage as he comes face to barrel with the rifle of Ben Beckman, first mate of the Red Hat Pirates, whom calls over to his sleeping captain on the Red Force and informs him of their visitors, causing the Yonkou red-haired Shanks to crack an eye open to see who he speaks of, and suddenly he chuckles that this is certainly interesting, thanking the duo for stopping by, since traveling back to the Grand Line to put an end to Whitebeard and the Navy's foolish war had so far been painfully dull. Hey y'all, I really hope you enjoyed this one. I know it was certainly the most action part of the series to date, while also sadly being the shortest in duration to date, so I do apologize for that. Though please let me know your thoughts on certain things going forward, such as what is to become of Lucci and Who's Who now that they've been miraculously saved by the red-haired pirates. What do you think Bluno's message to Lucci was, and will he and the rest of the crew be alright in the clutches of Doflamingo? And why exactly would Queen see fit to bring Lucci to Kaido? You'll just have to wait until next time to find out. We don't really have any major news shoutouts this time, as nothing custom was made for this video specifically, but thanks to Dave Does Music for providing the majority of the soundtrack, and Debatsky for providing official character renders from One Piece Treasure Cruise. And finally to Rujandoru Jeff once again. With that out of the way though, we can move on to our beloved patrons. Crimson Manifesto, DJ the Lazy Gamer, Dominique, Knuckles OX, Pizza 15X, Aaron Winters, Narku, Normandy 1998, Jay Ray, Stephen Norton, Shao P, Anthony Canales, Daniel Smith, Inebriated, Infernate Beast 326, Jamal Hayden, Kevin, Adrian Carr, Samuel Viveros, Vegito Gaming 78, and Zach Haji. It can never be overstated how much you guys' direct support of the channel means and what it does for the channel, as it allows me to sometimes, when ad revenue isn't going to be enough, make sure I can get new custom renders and hire voice actors and all the other stuff that really makes my content go above and beyond. But there's nothing left to do but to tell you to always take care of yourselves and the world around you. And as always, be sure to go beyond plus ultra. And I'll see you guys next time.